What's happening, people? Welcome back to the Scarfey Spurs Talk podcast. It ends Bayern 4, Tottenham 0. Thank goodness that is over. We dissected everything that happened in that game. As always, we look for positives, but also discuss what we saw in that game, what we maybe didn't like as well. So let's go through and introduce tonight's panel. We'll start with Gary Ward. Gary, firstly, how are you doing after that one? Maybe, hopefully, no, not too bad. And also, please introduce yourself to the panel.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me again. I'm pretty pleased the game's over, to be honest. First half I didn't think was too bad, but second half was quite difficult to watch at times. Not our greatest outing against pre-season, so I don't take a huge amount into that. But I'm sure all of us will dissect it enough for everybody.
We absolutely will. Thank you for giving us your time. Phillip, welcome back on. The Spurs fan over in Germany, a big follower of German football. Remind people a bit about what you do and also how you're doing.
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me on again, Harry. I'm based over here in Germany. I'm from Britain originally, but lived here for a long time. Just got promoted onto the board of our local Spurs official supporters club here in the south of Germany, which we're trying to grow. And I think, judging by the game today in Munich, there was actually thousands of German-based Spurs fans there. We're growing all the time, generally, right, in the region as well, which is great. So, just trying to kind of increase our following over here, right, on the continent, which we generally obviously have done through playing good football over the years and obviously winning a few trophies like last season. Yeah, as for the game today, just briefly, I think I'm glad it's finished as well. It wasn't really an enjoyable watch. I'm sure you're gonna call me out on my prediction from last night as well, because didn't quite go to plan. So I was a bit surprised, but I'm sure we'll dissect the game and everything else around it in detail.
Indeed. Thank you for joining us. And Mark, it's been a while, but welcome back onto the podcast. Remind people what you do and hope you're keeping well, mate.
Good to be back. I'm just a regular fan. Next season's my 50th as a season ticket holder, so I don't get too down about pre-season games anymore. There were elements that were really poor tonight, but we're not going to play Bayern Munich every week. And how many teams in the Premier League are better than Bayern Munich? Not many. Top 5 in Europe probably at the moment, with some exceptionally good players. At least is just a ridiculously good player. So, but again, we'll dissect that through the next hour or so.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Mark. You're absolutely right. Good way of looking at things. Reminder, if you're new to the channel, please like and subscribe. If you're listening on a podcast platform, please drop us a follow and a 5-star review. Check out our partners in the Kitman UK, selling former player memorabilia and class stuff and all that jazz. Let's crack straight into it. So before we get into it, I want to read out the lineup for people who didn't see it. They may be listed. So it's Vicario, Porro, Romero, Van der Ven, Spence. That's the back line. Yao Polini is starting his Tottenham debut in that number 6 role with Bentancur and Sarr alongside in midfield. Then Kudus, Johnson and Richarlison up top. Gary, I'll start with you if you don't mind. What are your thoughts on that lineup?
Yeah, it looks a strong lineup. I was happy with it. I think it was probably the best we potentially had available, and it was obviously quite clear that we needed to get some minutes into Polini quite quickly. I think he only had one friendly before he came to us anyway, so good to get some minutes into his legs and get some familiarity with the team. Front line, I think needs work still. Unfortunately, got Solanke injured, so we've had to go with Richarlison. Wasn't overly excited about that. Perhaps wouldn't have minded seeing the 2 French lads playing Tel and Odegaard, but yeah, I thought it's probably the best available given the minutes that have been given that have been available in legs. Probably 50-50 on the front line. Back 5 was probably the best we've got available, to be fair.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Gary. Phillip, any surprises in there for you with the team? We spoke about it in detail yesterday.
No, not really. I mean, I was happy with the lineup because it was, as Gary said, it was pretty much the strongest lineup I think that we could have, put out today. Spence was glad that he started, ahead of Davies. Apart from that, full strength back line, right? Midfield, yeah. I guess we thought Sarr was going to maybe play the number 10, which I guess he did, or try to play. The wingers. I was slightly surprised maybe that he started with Johnson on the left. Actually, I thought maybe he might start with Odebert or maybe Tell. But then I also thought that he's going to try Johnson out on the left, throughout the season anyway, rather than on the right, and maybe even use him as a striker in phases. So yeah, nothing too surprising. And to be honest, I was happy with the way that we lined up. I was still confident actually that we'd kind of go out there and play well, right? Let's say, with our kind of strongest team out there. I think at the end of the day, and again, we'll go into more detail, but there's been a lot of emotion, I think, already after this game. But as Mark said, it's a pre-season friendly still, and I've watched enough pre-season friendlies over the last 20 odd years. I can't remember exactly who against, but we've absolutely smashed teams in pre-season, and looked like world beaters. And then we've started the season off, at home to like a relegation team and played awfully. So I don't put too much into the overall kind of thing today. I'd say there's a few mitigating factors to kind of try and put a bit of a positive slant on it. But at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of work to do, right, before Burnley next week and obviously PSG as well. So, and Bayern, as we said yesterday, they're the biggest team in Germany, and the way that they play, some of the talent that they've got in there, and Elise was unplayable, right, when he's like that, and he's surely worth about 120 million now, probably one of the biggest bargains, I think, that anyone's bought, right, in the last kind of 2 years, right? But I think Bayern paid 50 million for him. It's ridiculous. But you look at their team, and I mean, they're obviously a level above us, and they're good enough to win the Champions League. And that's even without someone like Kane kind of being the cherry on the cake. So, again, we'll go into more detail, but I think, it's important that we probably, do try and, bring a bit of reason, into it today, right? And kind of look forward. But for sure, there's a lot of talking points that will come out of this, and, transfers will come into play, won't they, as well?
It certainly will. That's the plan, to get onto that a little bit later with the latest news, but also we'll link in with what more we need to do, because it was a bit of a wake-up call maybe to the Tottenham hierarchy. But Mark, I'll come to you again on that team. I want to talk to you specifically about João Palhinha, who got his debut. We'll get into his performance in a little bit, so don't touch on that. But were you happy to see him start when the team come out?
Yeah, I think I think you sign a player, you got to try and get him into the action as quickly as possible. It just so happens against his parent club, which was a bit odd. But I think in terms of lineup, Sarr's not a 10, and the problem is that having Bentancur alongside Palhinha, they're two very, very similar players, and both lack a little bit of pace. And we got a little bit overrun in midfield to start with, and couldn't really get a grip on the game. Whereas I think if you'd have played with Palhinha in the 6 and Sarr in the 8, and maybe Bergvall starting in the 10, then you've got more legs next to Palhinha with Sarr, and he'll win the ball and he'll use it. And then you've got more creativity with Bergvall in the 10, because he can play there, and I think ultimately he will end up there later in his career. But the kid's 19, so let's be realistic about it. And he's had one full season with us from the age of 18 to 19. So I think you have to take a lot of these with a pinch of salt. As I said before we came on air, you're not going to play Bayern Munich every week in the Premier League. There's maybe two teams better than Bayern Munich in the Premier League, and Liverpool being one of those. City arguably are better. I wouldn't say any of the others are, from what I've seen in pre-season, and it is only pre-season. As I said, it's I don't take too much stock on results. Didn't get too up last week when we beat Arsenal, and this week, it was a poor performance, but 3 absolute worldies. I defy most goalkeepers to try and save those. I don't think Neuer would have stopped them. So, is what it is. Could have been better, maybe defensively, blocking and closing down. But tired legs towards the end, 2 of those goals.
Indeed. Let's get straight into it in terms of the action. In the 12th minute, the first goal of the game came, and it went to Bayern through Harry Kane. Gary, come back to you. Did it look offside at the time, and have you seen it back? Because it did come to me, should I say, that Romero was incredibly deep compared to the rest.
I watched on Spurs Place. I don't know how everybody else found it, but I thought the camera in was atrocious for most of the game. So I didn't see it originally, but clearly on a replay it was offside. It was 2 yards off. But he took the goal as Harry Kane does, 1-touch goal. To great finish from him, but he was clearly offside in my opinion. I've looked at it back. He looked offside again. But yeah, defensively we had a good line there. So in a competitive game that would have been ruled out. So yeah, I think from a defensive standpoint, from that, I was quite happy. Defensively in the first half, I was relatively quite happy. I think we played okay. They had opportunities, chances, etc. But I don't think at any point where I was worried, and I thought there was definitely improvement from last year's defensive, especially from the fullbacks. But in terms of that particular goal, for me, it was offside. I've seen a couple of replays from Spurs Play, so if there's other angles that may be different, obviously I'm happy to be my mind changed, but it looked offside to me.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Gary. A lot of people will agree with you on that. Phillip, world-class touchdown finish by Harry Kane.
Yeah, just copy and paste, isn't it? Really, with what he does, wasn't any surprise to see him kind of pull it back onto his other foot and then slot it bottom corner. Really, was it? It was a good ball in. I think it was Elise with the ball, possibly. A great ball in, right? Just top class. But yeah, it was offside. Quite clearly offside as well. I was happy with the defensive kind of, the structure in the first half. I thought we kept the line, we held the line well. I didn't think we kind of gave them too many clear chances. I think there was one from Goretzka where he should have scored, to be fair. I think he kind of hit it on the turn in the middle of the box, right? Normally that one goes in the bottom corner as well. But apart from that, I don't really recall us kind of giving them, making too many errors, right? Or like not holding the line. I was quite happy. I thought our midfield was okay, but nothing special. I didn't feel that Palhinha, kind of, although I was happy to see him start the game in the end, I did feel he was a bit off the pace. I don't think he's played a match, right, for months, probably, right, a proper one. So he's clearly not fit, and I don't think he's ready to start in the Premier League. In all honesty, like I think that we should work on just getting him, in training, some test matches. I wouldn't be particularly calling for him to start against Burnley next week. In all honesty, I don't think we need to. But yeah, like it worked. It was all right. And to be fair, the only other real kind of chance that they got apart from that Goretzka chance from memory as well was the penalty. And I think there was, I didn't actually see a proper good replay on it. But I heard from a few people that said actually he didn't really touch him, quite possibly. And they were questioning whether it was a penalty. And I think think Dawes on Spurs play was kind of saying that it wasn't maybe a penalty either. But again, in a VAR situation, you probably don't get, you get away with those two. But I was okay with the first half. I didn't think it was terrible in the first half. I thought we were still competing, and we had a couple of shots. We didn't do enough coming forward. Johnson didn't touch the ball enough. Kudus was really the only outlet. Richie kind of seemed to keep losing the ball in the first half. Apart from that, there's kind of 2 long range shots that he had. But I was actually all right with it. I thought the first half was okay, and I was kind of hoping that we'd, come out second half, make a few changes, and approach the game a bit differently, maybe.
Which is pretty much what we did, but not maybe the way you would have wanted to go, Phillip. We didn't really kick on or improve at all, but we'll get into all of that. Mark, I'll come to you because Phillip mentions it, and it was next on my list of talking points in my head to do with Michael Olise's ball into the box. I mean, we all know it's class of Kane. We know what he's capable of. Definitely typical Harry Kane, but this was great, wasn't it, for Olise, who I think is going to be a big player this year.
Well, he was last year. He was just ridiculously good last year, and probably one of the main reasons why Bayern won the title back. But if you look at the wide angle shot that they showed on the replay of the offside, you can actually see the liner on the far side is looking in a completely different direction, which is actually disgraceful. He's got one job. Is to look along the line and look at an offside. I mean, and it was so blatant. It just infuriates me when officials have to do that. And then you've got things like the penalty there was barely any contact. It was very similar to when Spence went down in their area and the referee just gave a goal kick. Then you had the ridiculous yellow card for Romero. He touched Kane on the shoulder, yet Kudus gets hauled down by Lima on the counter attack, and the referee standing there laughing as he gives the free kick. I mean, surely for these friendlies, don't pick a home referee, because Bayern in Germany generally start most games 1-0 up because of the officials at home. Certainly at home. Phillip might want to comment on that, but I've got friends, German friends, who are Leverkusen fans, that are Dortmund fans, and they said the minute you step inside the Allianz Arena, you're 1-0 down already because they've got a penalty or a dodgy goal before they even start. Kane scored 29 consecutive penalties. How has they had 29 in 2 years? I don't think we've had 29 in 10 years. I don't think we've had one away from home for 2 years. I mean, it's ridiculous. So, and they don't need a 12th man or a 13th man to help them along the way. But like Phil said, first half, we weren't that bad. There wasn't a lot in it. They created some chances. Maybe they should have taken them. We created a couple of half chances. Second half, we just looked like we ran out of legs. But I just think the tactics are wrong, and the lineup in midfield was wrong. You can't play with ostensibly 3 8s is what we had, or a 6 and 2 8s. It's just not going to get away with it. Not against a team like Bayern Munich. Might get away with it against Southampton last season because they were absolute garbage. But I just think Bergvall needed to start because you needed that little bit of X factor, a little bit of creativity. And without Maddison, without Kulusevski, and without any creativity in there, you just don't stand a chance. Or you play Kudus in the 10 and play Johnson wide right, because wide left, there's just no point in being on the pitch. And you start Odobert. So I just think that the front 6 was just not quite right for me. But you know what? He's learning. The players are learning a new system again, because we're not playing that ridiculous high line and fullbacks playing centre forward. So they're getting used to a new manager, the majority of them, because they were there last season. So, you know what? Take it with a pinch of salt, and we move on and see how many PSG get next week. No, I'm joking. It's a whole new game. It's a whole new game, and I think Thomas Frank would have learned a lot tonight. And if he's not banging on Levy's door tomorrow morning, or Paratici's, or Jan Land, whoever they want to knock on the door, we need a number 10. Now, whether that's we'll get into it probably later, is the lad that's at Como on loan from Real Madrid, or they sold Real Madrid sold him with a buyback option. Paz, is it? There's been rumours today, or you just slap 70 million down for Eze, or you just do something. You need some creativity, and you're going to lose. You've lost what? How many goals did Madison get last season in half a season? 10, 11, and a whole load of assists, and then you haven't got Kulu till October at the earliest. So you've lost all of that as well. So they're not stupid. Levy's a lot of things. He's not stupid. But he's just got very, very short arms and very deep pockets in the nicest possible way, allegedly.
Thank you very much, Mark, for that one. I mean, you boys have already spoken about it, but let's move on to it. 14th minute, Bayern were awarded a penalty. Phillip, I want to start with you. What do you make of what Mark said, his claim about Bayern Munich, and, he's been told by others as well about how many penalties they get? Anything to say on that?
He's absolutely spot on the money. They call it the Bayern bonus. The Bayern bonus here, where they kind of get a goal a game, which is either sometimes a bit, questionable, let's say, right? Whether it is a penalty or a VAR thing, or again, red cards that, aren't given, or a yellow card. The referee was clearly, obviously, on Bayern's side today. And I think our players were kind of kicking off with the referee a bit, weren't they, at the end of the first half? Essentially because both of those goals were, shouldn't have been goals, and there was a couple of other cards that maybe should have been given out to Bayern players as well. But it's absolutely on the money, and it's not just at home. In the Allianz Arena, or the Arrogance Arena, which most of the rival fans would probably call it instead. There's a strong chance of that, but they get it away from home as well. Like whenever Bayern plays, they do seem to get a bit of leeway or something, kind of just favourable towards them. It's a bit like United, how they used to have the like Fergie time kind of thing, back in the day, and probably even. I mean, United obviously haven't been very good the last few years, but I think even after Fergie, when there's probably at Old Trafford, there's sometimes been a few controversial decisions there, including the Pedro Mendes one from many years ago, which we don't really want to go into now. But he's on the money, and at the end of the day, it's very difficult sometimes to get into games at the Allianz Arena as well, because Bayern do like to hog possession. They always have done, right? They've always been the biggest team in Germany. They've always had the best players, whether it's Company being in charge, or Guardiola, or Tuchel, even under Tuchel, who kind of plays more defensive, let's say, and a bit more pragmatic. They also dominated the ball, and outpassed, teams side to side. And it's difficult, I think, to get into games sometimes in Munich, because they literally just flood you. But they've got the quality of player that, generally speaking, they can deal with counters. Although yesterday, as I predicted that we would win 3-1, which I'm kind of, again, feeling, quite devastated by my prediction.
They suffocate you, Phillip. They just suffocate you in midfield. And they also have a knack. Every summer, they'll pick up one of their nearest rivals' players on a free transfer. Jonathan Tah this summer. No one stood a chance signing him. He was always going to Bayern. Did they not pick up who's the centre back that went back to Dortmund? I can't remember his name.
Almost.
They I mean, they were gutted, this summer though, because obviously not on a free, but they thought they had Florian Wirtz nailed on, to join them. He was going to be their main signing this summer, their marquee signing, and probably the player that they were going to rebuild the team around, right, for the next couple of years. And the fact that they didn't get him was really a kind of a dagger to the heart to them, But yeah, it's tough. But like if, as I said yesterday, though, Bayern, the centre backs that they've got, and they do kind of play with a high line as well, right? Often, they counter. You can counter them. And I would only say that the concern that I had today in the end, based on the game that we had, is that we just didn't, even on the counter, we didn't really create much real danger. They always seem to have two players to kind of gang up on Kudus, or on the other side. They literally squeezed us in every part of the pitch, and that was one of my concerns, that we just couldn't seem to get out at all. And when we did get the ball and counter, there was a couple of counters, but we never really got into a position where maybe we could just cross the ball low across the box or something for someone running in, like Johnson actually, like he kind of likes to do. But yeah, it's tough going to the Allianz Arena, though. I honestly thought that we would create more danger today, and that they might be a bit weak at the back and we would be a bit more solid, right? And I felt that we were capable of winning 3-1, obviously, today. Honestly, hence I'm obviously quite disappointed by the overall performance. But yeah, I mean, it's a tough place to go. And as Mark said, I think we just need to look at both halves and analyze them. And Frank will have learned a lot out of today. And probably in the end, it's probably going to be a positive thing for us, I hope, right? Because as you said as well, right? I mean, he's got to be knocking on Johan Lange's door tomorrow. He's got to be knocking on, or even speaking with Paratici if he's getting involved again, because I believe he was at the game today as well.
He was.
So,
we're talking about a team as well, a front four, which costed close to 300 million. So we're talking about one of the elites of the elites. I know we sound that we're disappointed with the result, but we're not going out spending 300 million on 4 players. And then our back line with, one of the best players in the league last year in Jonathan Tan, and then you got I cannot pronounce his name very well.
Upper Meccano. I've never rated his clumsy.
He's but he didn't put a huge amount wrong regularly. It's not bad. You got Kimmich. The team's incredible. But we are looking at a team that are willing to go out and say we need X player, and we're going to go put the money on. How quick did they do the Luis Diaz deal? So this is the difference between the elite of the elite and where we as a club and as a fan base want to be. We're not there because we don't have the higher ups that are willing to do what these people at Bayern Munich are willing to do. And that's the biggest thing. We could go out and spend however much money we realistically wanted. We probably could get some real top quality players. But the issue we constantly have is this. We're trying to do a little deal here and there where maybe we like someone, maybe we don't, rather than having a set plan. And Bayern Munich have always had that. So no matter what manager they've ever had, they've always had, this is how we play, this is who we are as an institution. And if we want something, we're going to go get it. And we're not that.
It's a bit like Man United. They're probably the biggest club in the country still, and can still attract players because they're Man United. Bayern Munich attract players because they're Bayern Munich. Liverpool attract players because they're Liverpool.
And we're not there. And that's the issue, is that we're not spending it to get us to those points.
But United finished 17th, 16th last season, or 15th, whatever it was.
15th.
No European football this season, but they've just beaten Newcastle to 2 big signings. And it can't just be wages. I'm sorry.
They're paying less. They're paying less for Sesko, right? Sesko would have earned more at Newcastle.
I don't understand it. It's where strikers go to ruin their career.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
it is.
And it is. I completely agree. And the frustration point is that the name value is there. You go anywhere in the world and you say Manchester United, they know who it is. It's very frustrating.
I was very skeptical when we announced Frank, but actually watching some of the preseason games, you can see a structure, you can see a system, and we will be more solid this season. We won't concede half the amount of goals we did last season. The concern at the moment is the creativity and scoring goals, but I think he'll get it right ultimately. I think he will get it right. I can't see United finishing in the top 10. I honestly can't. They're a mess.
I agree
they are an absolute mess.
I think that we've got the right person in charge. We need to now get the recruitment correct for what he wants. As I said a few times, I've been on with Harry, that the issues we've always seemed to have is we may go to a Jose Mourinho, we may go to a Conte, but we're buying players for the future. They're not future managers. They are win now managers. They needed players that are really to win right now. Again, and as we go to Ange, and then we do the same thing. Now we're at Thomas Frank. We need to have a structure from top to bottom of what we want to do, and ultimately our recruitment where we are now is because of this constant regurgitating, changing, constant, rinse and repeat, and we're not, and we're struggling. We desperately need someone creative. We all need this.
Yeah,
everybody can see it.
I was almost of the opinion. I'm sure I'm on it. But it's something with some sort of social media this week. As soon as Maddison was injured, I wouldn't have let Donnelly go out on loan. I just wouldn't have. And I'm not saying he can do a whole. No. I know you can't rely on him, or you can't rely on the academy player.
You can't rely on Richarlison.
But someone like Donnelly could have really flourished this season, covering for Maddison. But at least all of them. And actually, if you follow some of the teams they were at last season, all of them that have gone on loan, apart from Phillips, who's gone back, and Dorrington, who's gone back to where they were last season, have all stepped up a level. And the interesting one was George Abbott's gone to Wickham, and he was at Notts County last season. If you look at the Wickham announcement on Twitter, it is full of Notts County fans saying you've got one hell of a player there and just look after him, and we're gutted we haven't got him back. Had Notts County got promoted, he'd have gone there. Tyrese Hall's gone to Notts County, and he could have the same season. Donnelly at Stoke with the Stoke fans are literally wetting themselves that they've got James Donnelly for the season. So we're probably a year or two away from most of these knocking on the first team door. But I stand by what I said at the end of that under-21 Premier League success story season, is that at least 6 will make the first team. Not necessarily regular starters, but they will be proper first team squad members. Just seen something just flashed up on my one of my feeds, is that Levi Colwill of Chelsea's done his ACL out for the season. So they'll be buying a new centre-back because they've now got 3 centre-backs with ACL injuries, because Fofana's got his 3rd one. The £85 million centre-back they bought from Leicester that doesn't play, hasn't played for... No. I saw a stat earlier, he's played 27 of Chelsea's 116 games. Ridiculous. Wow. Anyway, but getting back to us, I think we'll get there. The chopping and changing of managers doesn't help. Chopping and changing of systems doesn't help. I saw somewhere earlier, just after the game, that we've got no world-class players. But you don't necessarily need world-class players. Maybe one outstanding player. And if you bought an Eze, you'd have that outstanding player. I don't know enough about the boy from Como, Paz, but my son, who's 21, was literally raving about him.
Yeah, I'm a big Serie A fan, so I watch it constant.
So you'll know.
He is very, very good. He can play all across the left, right, and in the middle. So he's good.
But he's only 20. He's 20 years old, and he's another kid.
He's not going to come. He's not going to be sold. Real Madrid will just buy him again. Real Madrid have first refusal on him.
Yeah, but the buyback clause doesn't kick in until next summer.
No, there was one this summer which was 8 million, and then the next summer was 9 million. It goes up each summer.
I thought it was. Well, I was reading. It was 26 and 27 were the two.
Whatever it was price wise, it goes up each summer.
But that doesn't stop Como to sell him for 60, 70 million, and they have to give Real Madrid half.
Yeah,
Real Madrid can't stop. They can't stop that sale.
They have a first refusal.
Does that apply to a team outside of Spain or Italy?
As far as I'm aware, it's first refusal on any of the deals. So they can say, look, yeah, sell him. We're not going to give you 40 million. But I just don't see it. But Como don't need the money. They're extremely wealthy.
Have we definitely registered like a really strong interest in him? I know Di Marzio tweeted about it, and he's obviously got quite a good standing, isn't he? Like
I just think we're at the point now is Maddison got injured, and then yesterday we were linked with 3 different attacking midfielders. It's just because we need a player, and Tottenham are always someone that's going to be in the papers.
And there is the Gibbs White money must be just sitting there earning interest because they were going to spend it on Gibbs White, so you might as well spend it on someone else.
For me, it was Eze from day one. He would be the guy. He tore us apart last season at White Hart Lane. So,
but the fact that Arsenal have turned around and said they won't pay the money.
Yeah,
I mean, do you want any more incentive to go and say, "There you go, Palace. There's the money."
Yeah,
we should have bought him. As David Pleat said it, we should have bought him when he was a QPR. He recommended him to the club, and we should have bought him. And the same goes for Jared Bowen. He recommended him to Tottenham. Tottenham bombed it and didn't want to buy him.
Wharton.
Elise,
another one. Wharton.
We bought Phillip.
I mean, there's a whole list. I mean, Pleat blessing is no longer with the club, but I've met him on a number of occasions, and his list of players, his knowledge of players in the lower leagues is unbelievable. He knows everyone.
I did my UEFA license at St George's Park, and he was there. So he was, and we were allowed to go like into like a bar area. It was like the managers club, and he was there, and it was like, as a Spurs fan, I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. So yeah, he was tremendous.
So knowledgeable, still, even at the age he is, and I can't believe the club said we don't need your services anymore. So
the biggest problem we've got James Maddison out probably for the season. Let's be frank about it. Kulichevsky out for the next 4 months.
He'll be back October. They reckon Kulichevsky will be back October.
3 months. We got nobody in the 10, and it's worrying. Look,
and it's glaringly obvious.
Yeah, I mean, look,
and we're only fans.
Jack Grealish is sitting there. Can we not just grab him on loan for?
You know what though? Like Grealish would be perfect for us though.
On loan,
because
he's sitting there on loan.
Because the thing is, he's on 350 grand a week, so we're not going to pay his full wages, but we've just wiped Sonny's 200 grand a week off the books. So we now have 3 players that are on in excess of 100 grand a week. I think that's Romero, Maddison, and I can't even think who the other one is.
Probably.
But Solanke. Yeah. So there's 3, and we've got the 200 grand a week from Son to spend, plus the 60 million from Morgan Gibbs White. Why we haven't gone out and done a deal for, I don't know, Grealish and Eze?
Yeah.
I mean, they seem like 2 very easy deals to do. I know most transfers, even loans, can be complicated. I know a couple of agents, and they are complicated. So they're not straightforward. But I'm sure both players would want to come. Champions League football, team that's just won a trophy, all those young players. I like the signing of Polinia. I think for someone like Archie Gray, for Bergvall, it'd just be like a sponge.
Yeah.
And you just learn from him. And he will get up to speed. But he's had very little pre-season, as you said. I think he's had 1 half of a friendly, and he hardly played back in the last season. So he's going to be rusty. And he showed it a little bit.
I don't think he played in the Club World Cup either.
No, he didn't. So. He didn't. He wasn't in the squad. Wasn't included in the squad. So
he's not had a huge amount. But we're taking over Harry's podcast here. So.
Harry, thank you.
Get us in order, son. Get us in order.
No, I was enjoying that. No, I enjoyed it too much. Thank you. I actually want to get on to transfers and number 10 discussion later, but I thought I'll let you dive into it a little bit at the start, but it did go on. But I did enjoy that. Let's go back to the game, Gary. I will stick with you because in the 14th minute we were speaking about it. That Bayern penalty that was awarded. How do you view it? Do you think it was a foul? Was that Polina maybe unlucky on this one?
A bit of both, I think. From the one angle I saw, I don't think he got the ball, but I don't think he got a huge amount of the player either. And I think, like we've said before, when you go to clubs such as Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, you're already kind of up against it, especially at home, even in friendlies, it seems. So I only saw one replay. There didn't look a huge amount from Polina in terms of saying, no, I didn't touch him. But again, it's a friendly. But you know, Harry Kane does what he does, right, on penalties. Oh, no, not on that time. He didn't.
Exactly that.
No,
very, very, very rare. I mean, he has done it in the past, but that's not what we're used to seeing. And Phillip, I mean, Gary does mention it there, 15th minute, Kane missing from the spot, instantly looking at the turf. I mean, there's a little slip at the end. I mean, very unlike Harry Kane, wasn't it?
It was. It reminded me of. Did he miss he missed the penalty, didn't he, for England, right? A couple of
yeah, that's why I said it.
similar kind of, but it was more like a rugby conversion. Yeah, it was a semi, I think, wasn't it? Yeah, it was more like a rugby conversion. But I mean, look, it wasn't a penalty for me, and I think justice was done, you know, in that moment. Kane actually, apart from. I mean, Kane's just like that, though, isn't he? I thought, apart from kind of the goal that he scored and the penalty incident, he didn't actually do that much more in the game. You know, when he was on the pitch, really, you know, he didn't really spray the ball around. He didn't kind of come deep. He doesn't do that anyways as much for Bayern, but he does it in some games actually. But he doesn't need to do it for Bayern, does he? So I didn't think he was that involved in the game actually, and that we dealt with him quite well. You know, he didn't kind of completely annihilate us or something. But yeah, you know, normally Kane puts that in, it's 2-0. You know, I mean, it could have easily been 3 or 4-0 in the first half in the end, I guess, if you think about it, right? But, you know, coming back to the original points, I thought we did quite well in the first half. And I was glad to see Bergvall come on in the second half right at the beginning. But, you know, it is how it is, isn't it? You know, we've got a lot to do and a lot to learn, but you know, look, you just saw the difference in quality, I think, between the sides today. And coming back to just the midfielder or the number 10 kind of question, you know, not to talk about it too long, but I think the challenge that we had, and this is why Grealish or Eze would actually be perfect for us, is that person that we need in the 10 needs to be a creative person, but it also needs to be someone who can kind of dictate the play, you know, keep the ball ticking, you know, distribute the ball, even if it is sideways sometimes, right? Just get their foot on the ball and keep possession, because we don't really have anyone else, maybe apart from Bentancur, if he's playing in the right role, who can kind of keep it ticking over. You know, like what Kimmich does for Bayern. You know, Kimmich isn't really a number 6. Not really. He's a modern midfielder, right? He can kind of play 6. He can play 8. He can play 10. Like Kimmich can play anywhere, but that's because he's a top class midfielder, and Goretzka can as well. It's like Phillip Lahm in the old days. Do you remember him? You know, he played.
Lahm could have played in goal.
He was the player. Literally, he could play anywhere. He was the
left back, right back,
without using his hands.
Yeah.
He was a tiny guy. He was like, you know, he wasn't built like anything, you know, he didn't have a massive physical presence on him, but he was just so good. But that's what I still feel that we're lacking. And Madders, despite his goals and assists, he's the guy who keeps things ticking over. He keeps possession. He can make, you know, make the team a bit calmer in periods of stress, or he can, you know, ramp it up a notch, you know, and that's. So we're missing the creativity, but we're also missing the control, right, in the middle of the pitch. And, you know, that's why before Madder's injury, you know, again, I know other people would love him as well, but I was saying that if we can just somehow get Adam Wharton in, He's a game changer for us because he's not
Absolutely.
he's a complete midfielder. And that's what we don't have compared to a lot of the other top teams. Chelsea have got all those, X amount of centre midfielders in there. Liverpool have strengthened. They've already got the Argentinian McAllister in there. We don't have that strength, but also that kind of all-round thing in midfield. And that's why I just think if we're going to get this number 10 in, like Mada's replacement, it's got to be exactly the right profile. So actually a Grealish or an Eze do fit that because they can cover both kind of roles. However, I do also think that if the opportunity presented itself, we cannot rely on Sarr, Bergvall, even Bentancur, to be honest, because he's not. I don't know. Like Bentancur is inconsistent in my opinion. I was
going to say I don't think you can have Bentancur and Palhinha. From what I saw tonight, I don't think you can have them in the same team because they're too alike, and they get in each other's way. I think with Wharton, the reason they've done Palhinha as a loan, firstly, is to see how he does through the season. But I think the idea is to try and go after Wharton next summer. I don't think Palace were ever going to let Eze and Wharton leave in the same summer. The other one at Palace that is causing a bit of a stir, and I didn't realise until I read this today, is Gahey. He's got 1 year left on his contract, and he's available for 40 million. It's almost a no-brainer. And you could play Van der Ven at left back, where he plays for the Netherlands, and then you've got a left-footed left back. As much as I love Spence, and I think he offers us so much, I hate having a right footer on that side. I think it just limits you in the way he receives the ball from Vicario. It just his body shape's all wrong, and you end up having to go backwards. So, Gahey for 40 million quid is an absolute no-brainer. But are they going to let two players go? Not sure.
Yeah, probably not, because they at the moment haven't brought anyone in, and they're still waiting to find out whether they'll be playing in the Europa League or the Conference League. We'll get on to transfers again.
Marinakis has eaten the Europa League already. He's had it for dinner, and that's it. It's gone.
That's what I think you've done with good Morgan Gibbs White, if I'm totally honest with you. But be careful what I say. In the first half, it was 1-0 Bayern Munich. Let's talk about positives. Who impressed? Because there wouldn't have been that many, but I bet there was someone somewhere. Gary, I'll start with you. Top of my mind, I have Kudus written in brackets mainly, but also thought that likes of Bentancur looked okay.
Yeah, they're just them two for me, to be completely honest. I thought back line, back five was okay. I think Spence looked okay in part. Obviously, we'll come on to the goal. I don't believe that's completely his fault, but I'm sure we'll cover that in a minute anyway. I would have said Bentancur and Kudus. Kudus looked good on the ball, on the turn, receiving the ball. Work rate was very good, very industrious as a player. Always kind of look to progress. We need progressive players. He looked like that, but he just didn't have anything around him to help him. Richarlison just, I feel sorry because I say the same thing every time. I don't know what we've got there. I don't know what he is. And if you'd have said to me 10 years ago, you're going to have a Brazilian number 9 play for you, I think, bloody hell, we must be some sort of football team if we've got that. I just don't know what he is. I don't know where he plays. I honestly, it baffles me. And I'm speechless with him. Johnson was non-existent, completely non-existent. I think Bentancur, I like Bentancur, I'm a big fan of his. I think he slows the game down when we need to, progresses when we need to. He's good on the balls. Very, very comfortable on the ball. My concern is that him and Palhinha might not be able to gel very well, but considering the amount of games that we've got potentially coming, that's fine because it could be one or the other. Next to them, how I said previously, would be Morgan Gibbs White, would have been that progressive player standing next to one of them, and then a number 10, which would have been Maddison. We desperately need someone that can play deep, that can also progress, that can carry the ball, that can spray the passes each side. That's definitely what we need. In terms of today in the first half, I I thought Bentancur played well. I thought Kudus played well. Outside of that, the back five was okay. I'm a huge Pedro Porro fan. I think he's a tremendous footballer. So
his range of passing is ridiculous. His crossing is a joke.
I think he's fantastic. He's probably one of my favourite players. I love Sarr as well. I'm a big Sarr fan. I thought today was probably his weakest game. He's playing in a position that's not really him. But I'm a big fan of Pedro Porro. I thought again he played very well. Luis Diaz is no joke of a player. So he done well against him. And then he's got a plethora of players coming at him as well. So probably those three for me.
Okay, thank you very much. And on Porro, I think the criticism he gets, in my opinion anyway, is slightly unfair. It was a lot, wasn't it, last season and the season before, but defensively. But I don't think he's the only one who, had a problem defensively. I think he's got a lot better and kind of ironed out those problems.
I think that he's got better. I think that he's playing as a fullback now. He's not being asked to tuck in as a centre midfielder. If Spence goes on, he tucks in goes in as a back three. We've all played football. Some of us maybe for longer than others, but that's how our fullbacks play. If one goes, the other one tucks in, and you make a back three, so you don't get caught on the attack. We were pushing both of them on. If we weren't pushing them on, both were coming inside, and you're asking a fullback. And it's hard for a striker. I played at a decent level when I was a striker. It's hard to have your back to the opposition's goal and you facing your goal the whole time. That's difficult to do. That's hard for a striker, let alone a fullback to do. And we're asking a right back or a left back to do that 20 times in a game. They're going to make mistakes. Spence today's mistake, again, he had his back to the goal. And the issue he had there was nobody within his range here that was available to pass to. Everyone was marked. So he's looked up. There's nowhere to pass. So he's tried to play and he can't play out because he's on the wrong side. So
that all comes. I was going to say that all comes. That thing with Spence all comes because he's a right-footed player playing on the left-hand side. And his body shapes wrong when he's received the ball. No, he doesn't want to play there. He does it pretty well. He did it very well against Salah and Saka last season, so he can do it. The thing, just to finish on Porro, Gary.
Yeah,
I think the proof of the pudding was the 3 knockout rounds away from home and the final last season in the Europa League proved that he can defend, because we conceded 1 goal in those 4 games, and that was an own goal away at Alkmaar. Clean sheet in Frankfurt, where Frankfurt, again, Phillip, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, Frankfurt haven't failed to score at home in about 15 months in any game, and we kept them out. Bodo Glimt, how much were we told? Bodo Glimt, you don't want to play on that plastic pitch. They never lose at home. And that was a stroll in the park. That was a stroll in the park. Yeah. And as soon as we scored against Man United, I was probably the only Tottenham fan that thought, they ain't scoring against us because they're rubbish. They've got rubbish players. Apart from Bruno Fernandes, probably the only one that scared me. The rest of them don't, because he can make something out of nothing. And we kept, I think it was 3 clean sheets out of 4 away from home in European games when we told Porro can't defend. Well, yes, he can. Just has to be told to discipline.
Yeah.
And that's what frustrated me. That's what frustrated me in the Premier League, is that why couldn't he just play like that in the Premier League? 17 out of 21 games and lost by 1 goal in the Premier League last season. Those 21 defeats, 17 by 1 goal. That tells me there wasn't a huge amount wrong that could have been very easily put right just by being a bit more disciplined and game management.
Yeah, and that's what Frank will bring. That's what Thomas Frank will bring.
Thomas Frank will bring that discipline. We've already seen it in these 3 games. Is there 3 games, 4 games? We've already seen better discipline out of the back. So as a back 5, I couldn't fault it. The only fault I can say is that they're coming up against a £300 million front 4.
Arsenal never looked like scoring last week. Yeah. Not in a million years they look like scoring.
So we're not going to.
And they're meant to be the second best. Well, sorry, the best team in the Champions League, according to
that. Dreaming, absolutely dreaming. Mark, can I stick with you before you jump? Do you think Bayern should have been more than 1 goal up at half time?
Well, we should have scored the penalty, and Goretzka missed a couple of absolute, not sitters, but glaring opportunities. Or at least if he hits the target, it goes in the back of the net. There were snapshots, but look, as I said to you, At home, especially, they suffocate you in midfield. They dominate possession, they dominate the ball, and they don't really let you out. And the only outlet we had was Kudus. Johnson on the left is very, very ineffective. If you're going to play him from the start, play him on the right, and then have Kudus on the bench, or play Kudus on the right and have Johnson on the bench and start with Odegaard. At least you've got a bit more balance to the team in that respect. As I said right from the outset, I think he just got the front six a little bit wrong. I'd have played Bergvall in the 10 because he's a more creative player. He's an 8 because he will drive from midfield. And you saw that second half of the season when he picks up the ball and drives through the ball. Sarr can do it as well. But the 3 that we had today was just a little bit workmanlike. And Sarr in the 10 was just wasted. You almost could have swapped Bentancur and Sarr over. And then you've got Sarr's legs around Palhinha as the holders, and Sarr with the legs in the middle of the park as opposed to the creative. And Bentancur maybe as a 10 with a bit more creativity. But look, you know what? The game is full of opinions. We've all got one. No one's right or wrong, and we can all be wise after the event and after the game. But as I said, we ain't going to play Bayern Munich every week. We might be unlucky and get them in the Champions League. We know what's coming when we play them.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'd rather play Bayern Munich than Dynamo Cheeky Girls. So, hey ho.
Hey ho, indeed. Half-time substitution was made from Tottenham. Bergwall come on and Paulinho come off. Phillip, do you just think that's a case of, you said there, Paulinho only really played one pre-season game. We talked about, didn't we, yesterday with in-depth preview I've done with you on the channel, Phillip, that Bayern, although they're further into their pre-season campaign, closer to starting the new year as well, they've actually played less games. Obviously, Paulinho suffered a lot from injury recently, so it made sense, didn't it, him coming off at half-time?
Yeah, I don't think he looked match fit. You know, he made a couple of good interceptions, but he looked sluggish. I know he's not the most mobile player anyways, right? But he did look a bit off the pace. And I thought that Bergvall would come on, for the second half. So it was the right decision. I was happy with it. And, I think he needs time to get up to speed, and probably when he comes back into the Premier League, he's going to come back into that higher pace of football. The games he did play in the Bundesliga for Bayern will have been at a much slower pace, let's say, right, compared to the Premier League where he was so good for Fulham. So, yeah, it was the right decision. Bergvall came on. I thought for the first 5 minutes, kind of 10 minutes of the second half, we looked better. I thought, we got on the ball a bit. We had a little phase of possession. Bergvall got a couple of good little kind of mini runs forward. And I can't really remember the minute when the 2-0 happened without checking again now, but it kind of quickly just reverted back into the backs to the wall, being suffocated by their pressure. But it was the right decision to take Paulinho off, and I would imagine that he will play a part against Paris next week. Be interested to see whether he does start him or whether he kind of brings him on maybe for the second half against Paris. But I'm not sure he's going to start him against Burnley in the Premier League on the Saturday. And again, I don't think we need to start him because you'd like to think that regardless of where we are, right, with our form and kind of fitness of players and tactics and kind of change of tactics, that we're still kind of good enough, right, to turn up at home against Burnley, probably with a bit of a more, lightweight midfield, right, and be able to kind of still dictate that game, I mean, anyways, if we kind of play Burnley at home and we're really sat back and Burnley are kind of dictating the play in a game like that, then, we have an issue. Anyways, I think moving forward, right, because Thomas Frank isn't going to park the bus this season. He said he's going to change things up. He likes to play attacking football as and when. He's not a defensive manager per se. So let's see. But again, Paulinho is a good addition for our squad because he allows us, different options, right, in maybe more difficult games. He likes to rile up the opposition as well, right? So at least we've got another player in there who can, be a bit more aggressive, right, where it's needed, play the dark arts, I think. So yeah, very good for us, but right decision to take him off.
Okay, thank you, Philip. Marcus had to jump. We thank him for coming on, and we'll plug his and the panel socials at the end. For now, we go on and move on to the second half. Gary, can I come to you? Romero took out Kane a couple of times. Yeah, one off the ball, one on the ball. What do you make of that? You're shaking your head there. Do you think maybe he was lucky, I don't know, to not get that red card?
It's just a liability. He's just a liability. I don't know what goes through his head. He did it about 3 times. There's just absolutely no need and reason for it. This is one of the things I think the 3 of us spoke about it before. That's my biggest problem with him. It's just a liability. I can't understand why. There's no need for him. He was nowhere near any of the any of them.
Maybe some personal beef. I don't know.
I don't know what it is. As a centre half, you put your body about, stamp your authority early on, but 3 or 4 times, it probably would have. I mean, it would definitely have been booked minimally. He might have been lucky to stay on the pitch at one point in the Premier League. But that's my biggest issue with him is this. I don't know why he does it, and why he continuously does it. Because he doesn't need to. Kane's not that mobile. He can stick to him, and he'll be fine with him. Not sure why he keeps doing this sort of stuff. And again, it's a slight concern. But this is the Romero that we have.
Indeed, and this is our captain here. 61st minute goal come, of course, and it comes to Bayern 2-0 through Kingsley Coman. Philip, I'll come to you on this one. Is it a foul on Jed Spence, or is it just, do you think, weak from Spence? I looked at that and thought, it's nothing in that. I think we've already spoken about, he turns, he's in trouble, doesn't know what to do, gets it wrong, but, he doesn't have that support in and around him.
Yeah, it was weak from Spence, but as we've said, as Gary said, he's playing in a position that he doesn't want to play. He's right-footed. He got the ball in that area of the pitch, and there was no support for him anyways as well. And you could see very early when it came that he was struggling a bit, right, in that situation. He was trying to use his body, right, to get some leverage and stuff, and he couldn't. And then when he lost the ball, it's just like, it goes to a player like Kingsley Coman, who, despite having a lot of injuries over the last couple of seasons, despite not being probably where he was, right, 5 years ago, he's still world class. He's a world class winger, and he can finish those goals. And, there's nothing you can do about that finish. Vicario can't save that. We said like probably Neuer wouldn't have been able to save that. That's just one of those curling, Sonny-esque finishes, right, from nowhere, right, which just goes in the goal. But I think the annoying thing is that, again, before that, that was still the phase after Bergvall came on, and we weren't great, but we were still in the game. We were 1-0 down. They weren't creating oodles of chances, so it's kind of disappointing to just make an error like that. Yeah, the finish was great, but it's a gift of a goal, though, isn't it? Because you should never lose possession there in that.
No, you shouldn't lose possession. When you've got your back to the goal, you always need options in front of you, whether it is where it's come from or to your right or left. And when you look at the replay, there's no options to him at all. Equally, he's not strong enough, so he loses it. They have to go past 2 or 3 players as well. Bergvall's just standing there like this. He's not charging. That will come with experience and age for him, and he's just come on. So there was a number of things, but equally it is a fantastic strike. I don't think there's any goalkeeper in the world that's probably stopping him.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, Bergvall, and there was someone else there. They probably have to do a bit better, but I don't know. Like I mentioned it on the thing, I still don't know whether maybe there's a slight mitigating factor, the fact that we went to Asia, which was a long tour. We were there for 10 days, something like that, I think.
Yeah,
in humidity and heat, training there every day. We had the kind of the Sonny, leaving situation, right? Which kind of happened quite quickly within that time as well. We had his, emotional interviews and videos yesterday. I'm just wondering as well, because apart from everything else, the fact that Bayern were a step up today, but in a lot of cases we really were second to the ball and we just looked a bit sluggish. And I just kind of maybe just putting it out there that maybe it's a bit of a mitigating factor that we did do all that travel and that we came back, came again to a new city. We haven't had a single home game this pre-season. Right? We've played in Reading, Luton, where was the other one? Wickham, was it? Munich.
Yeah, we played the Hotspur away. I think the Wickham one was the Hotspur away.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
That's the only one.
Yeah, sorry. We played the one at the training ground, but we haven't kind of had the benefit of being in front of the fans in the stadium.
No, we haven't.
Which is quite unusual, actually. It's probably
the biggest reason for that is they've just had 10 days of 50 Cent and all these people there, right? There's a pictures full of music artists, so we're not going to. We're making commercial money. We're sending our players out halfway around the world. I mean, when did they get back from Asia? Like what? Monday?
I think they got back
Tuesday.
They flew into London, I think, on Monday evening late. And they got home from
it's Thursday.
3 a.m. on Tuesday, jet lag, flew to Munich.
Out to Munich.
Do you know what I mean? Like I'm just trying to bring a bit of additional reasoning in, right? Because I think in some of those situations, we'll talk about it in a minute, but the goals from Bayern, all of those goals, right, were 2, 3, 4 were long range wonder goals. Some of those would be goal of the month, right? Like in some leagues possibly, and in a lot of those cases we were standing off. Maybe we didn't clear it quickly enough. We were a bit slow to the ball. There was a lot of phases in the game where I just thought we looked slow. We looked tired and we looked slow, and I think we have to bear that in mind, because Bayern haven't gone anywhere. Okay, they played in the Club World Cup, but that finished a month ago now, pretty much 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, whatever. So, and they haven't been anywhere since. They've been working on building up fitness, training. They might have been to Mallorca or somewhere like that on a kind of warmer weather, camp, but they haven't done that travel. So I think we just need to bear that in mind. And I think that in a couple of phases in the game today, potentially even for that second goal, when it came to after Spence making that error, but not having anyone to pass to and everyone else not really moving into position, it kind of almost just looked a bit lazy and sluggish, right? But there'd be no reason for the players to do that, really, right? So anyways, just rambling on that point now, but I think it's something we need to bear in mind. But again, it comes back to the point, we don't have another left back in the squad apart from Ben Davies, who's fit. And
he looked off the pace when he came on. Bayern played on Saturday, and they played at home. They flew back from America. I think because of the Club World Cup, you have to have 3 weeks rest, which they had.
Yeah.
And then they went and played Lyon on Saturday at home. So they're not travelled anywhere else. They've had a decent break. They've played, so they've been playing in America. That automatically keeps the body ticking over. And they're a world-class football team.
But they've been with their families the last weeks as well, right here. And I think these things do have an effect. So I think we do just have to bear these things in mind, and potentially fans that because I've seen people getting on Thomas Frank's back after today, all right, and I kind of just can't understand that, So
I think a lot of these people are on Twitter. It's just a cesspool, unfortunately, at this point. It was a great tool a few years ago. It's become an absolute cesspool, and I think a lot of these that do that are just trying to get some likes or trying to have a fight. But there isn't, and there's not any logical Spurs fan that could sit here right now and start saying we're going to get on Thomas Frank's back is ridiculous. And if you are, like, give your head a wobble.
Absolutely, but if you come back to the Ben Davies thing quickly as well, though, right? He obviously looked off the pace when he came on. He looked off the pace in the last game against Newcastle. I thought he was very ineffective in that game. I love Ben. What a great guy. Servant to the club. He was like Sonny's best mate, wasn't he? They had some emotional things being posted out yesterday, but we extended his contract, didn't we? I think really only to be able to kind of maybe get a fee for him if he goes. I think we'd all maybe agree that it would be great if he could become a coach or something maybe at the club in the future. But he clearly isn't good enough on duration to be starting top level games for us in either the Champions League or the Premier League. Not anymore. So why is he? Why is he still there? We've got a couple of weeks left of this window. If we don't ship him out, what's the plan with him? Is he literally just going to be a second-rate kind of stopgap for us? Still in that squad where we actually need more places in the squad. And are we going to buy another left back? We surely have to, but are we? This is something we drastically need, because last season under Ange, despite Spence playing so well in a lot of games and being, one of our more attacking outlets, right, in some of the games where we also didn't play well at all, even from an attacking perspective, he just looks so unbalanced on that side. So
yeah,
I honestly can't believe that Frank is confident and comfortable with the fact that he kind of has to play a right footer.
But he's probably not. He probably doesn't want to do it. That's the problem.
But
No.
we have to. That's just another role that we have to address in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Even if it is a Dennis Durkin or even a younger player, I think in that role, maybe we could get a more of an up and coming player, right, to kind of act as that additional player. I don't know, but something that we need to sort out.
We'll get onto that at the end and dive in. But Gary, a question in the YouTube chat says, Gary, you're coaching hypothetically. Would you have taken Jed Spence off just after he got caught in possession for that second goal? Because he played very well in the first part of the game, playing his patch.
I think it's two answers really, depending on how he is physically and what are we trying to do with him. Is it minutes that we're trying to survive? Are we trying to tick him over because we know that we're going to need him next week in the Super Cup? I don't think it was based off of losing possession in the goal. I don't completely think he's at fault for the goal for the reasons I said earlier. Equally, we need to in a way protect for the upcoming games. There's obviously caution there, and maybe not some reliability with Ben Davies being able to slot in, because Ndoggy probably won't be ready. So it's kind of a yes and a no. Yes, okay. if we're needing him to manage some minutes. No, if we weren't managing minutes, I would have personally have kept him on. I think he need it for the other argument side is he would need more minutes playing in that position. It just depends on what is going in Thomas Frank's mind at this point, which is difficult because I can't say. Had it been me, I probably would have kept him on. Yeah, I probably would have. I don't think Ben Davies is. I love Ben Davies. I think it's. Unfortunately, I think it's probably time that he moves on. And that's horrible to say. I hate having to say I want people to leave the football clubs. It's horrible to say that, but I think we definitely need an upgrade quite quickly in those areas, or someone that could play left and right. Jed Spence, another one that can play left and right as the option to play there. So, yeah, a bit of a long-winded answer, and it's a difficult one, really, because you don't really know the circumstances of Ndoggy. Ndoggy's probably not going to be playing. So, yeah, you need to protect that left side because if he gets injured and Pora gets injured, we ain't got anything. So
No, that's
it's a difficult one.
It is indeed. Let's progress through the timeline of the game. Thank you very much for that answer, Gary. 63rd minute, more substitutions. We saw Wilson Odobey and Ben Davies come on, and Brendan Johnson and Jed Spence lead the pitch. And in the 75th minute, we saw another goal from Bayern, their third of the match, to take a 3-0 lead, scored by Lennon Carl. I mean, Gary, coming back to you, I mean, it's a fantastic strike for the kid, wasn't it?
Yeah, they're not ones you can save. They're hit first time straight in. They're a lot of confidence for him to do that, and fair play to him. It was a great strike. Again, defensively, we're just switching off. We just looked tired to me. I think after about 60 minutes, the players looked tired. They really did, and we didn't make a lot of wholesale changes like what Bayern Munich did in the end. They made like 5 or 6 at once. We probably had a number of players we could have done that with ourselves. But yeah, again, I think we're just trying to get minutes in, but the players look tired, mentally tired. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of sitting on an airplane, but that's got to be a lot of travel they've been doing recently. They were, Hong Kong, then Korea, then back to London for like a day, then to Munich. That's a lot. It is a lot.
It is. It's important to remember, and I didn't even really consider that. I knew they travelled a lot, but when you think about it, it does make more sense. But no, thank you on that. Philip, I'll come to you. I want to move on to the fourth goal, which came in the 79th minute, scored by Kusa Asare. I mean, first, it's very scrappy in the box before the strike, wasn't it? Do you think the chance was gone at the time?
Yeah, I think we had the chance to clear it. No, I didn't. I saw one replay, but I was just admiring the strike, if anything, to be honest, because it was an absolute worldie, from nowhere. Same as the one before. He just had the confidence to absolutely hit through it. But yeah, we should have cleared the ball before that. But Gary just said it again. I think by that point we were just done. Right? I mean, we were 3-0 down. It's a friendly in Munich. Looking at a different way at that point, Bayern had also made quite a few changes, right, and brought the kids on. We'd made changes, but there'll be more players in our team probably worried about potentially picking up an injury, before the Super Cup, next week in the first game of the season. So it's not an excuse as to why. Again, they might stand off a bit, right? I mean, if you've got an opportunity to clear the ball, you should clear the ball, right? That's what everyone learns. But, I honestly, I just think, that the scoreline in the end, right, it's probably deserved, right? Because Bayern had, 18 shots. They had chances in the first half. They should have scored. They had some other chances. Vic made a really good save. There was a really good save in there as well at some point. So the scoreline in the end is deserved, but 3 of those goals, in the second half were worldies, from outside the box, and yeah, we could have done better. But it just looks like we're just like a bit tired, we're just sluggish. So again, it's a friendly. A lot of fans will be concerned about the result and the performance, but I think you have to look at the bigger picture a bit. And, Frank's been here 4 weeks. He joined us 4 weeks ago, or maybe 5 weeks, but he's been here 4 weeks, and with all that travel as well in it as well. He's trying to, you've seen him doing those drills on the training ground, right, that they were showing with the defensive line and the midfield pressing and stuff. You can see there's been an effect already, but, he can't work magic, in every game right until then. So I think it's going to be very interesting anyway to see the next game after this, because it's Paris. It's obviously potentially even another step up from Bayern, or at least the same kind of challenge. Chance to actually win another trophy. It still counts as a major trophy, doesn't it? The Super Cup, even though it's kind of like a bit of a glorified charity shield, isn't it, really? But then Burnley next week. So the players are all going to be focused on that. But I think everyone's learning, right? They're going to be learning the new system. They're going to be learning what Frank likes and doesn't like. someone like Porro, as we've said, is actually a really good defender, and he's now, going to be playing in a more disciplined system. So they're all having to get their head around where they stand and everything else. And we've played different teams every half of pre-season, so we need a bit of settled time as well. So yeah, great goal from Bayern for the goal. We should have cleared it, but the game was done. The game was done by.
It was indeed. Gary, on that fourth goal still, I mean, it was another great strike, wasn't it? I think you said it earlier, Bayern scored 3 really top goals in that second half, didn't they? They really blew us away.
Yeah, they did. They looked comfortable from the start, really, and then with the changes they made, the lads that came on looked comfortable. They look like they're a team that's been with their manager for a number of seasons. They know what they want. They know how the team plays. The team doesn't ever really change in terms of its style and the product that you get from them. It's always kind of been like that, certainly for as long as I can remember. But yeah, we've just got to give credit where credit's due. We came up against a better team, and ultimately, like what Phil was saying, we've got a manager that's been here 5 weeks, 6 weeks. He's not going to change things instantly, but I can already see improvements, especially with our backline. We are trying to press better, more collectively. Biggest problem we have is there are a number of players in there that just are not to the level that we need. Richarlison, again, as I said earlier, it's not working. So we just need to start. The problem we've got is the difference between us and Bayern Munich is they're glaringly obvious. Bayern Munich identify what they need and they go and get it. And if they can't get it, for instance, reverts, they go to the next one and they immediately go and make it. We go, well, we quite like this person. And then we go, maybe we like this person. And then actually,
we're admiring that person, yeah.
Yeah, we're actually interested in this person who's a little bit cheaper, but actually we still like this. And then we just don't ever get anywhere.
Yeah.
And it's just been like this honestly, for as long as I can remember. I've been watching this since 1990. I was 5. It's been like this for as long as I can remember. And I appreciate I was just reading the chat that people were talking about Daniel Levy's interview with Gary Neville and like, yeah, he comes off a nice person. And, he is the businessman, but there's got to be a point where we have to go. We need to change, and we can't keep blaming the person that's in the dugout. And this is where we're kind of at with the recruitment issues we've had over the since Pochettino. Let's be completely frank about it. We're not matching the manager with the recruitment, and it's catching up on us, and it's caught up on us now. We won't be able to compete on all fronts unless there's significant investments made. But one of the main issues that we do have is our inability to sell football players. I've never known a team or a club that struggles to sell players at the right time. We've got 20 million for Song.
It's because we overpay for players. I'm not talking about Song here, but we pay a lot and then we can't shift them on because no one wants them. That's the reality.
Richarlison, we paid 50 million for him?
60,
I mean,
believe it or not.
60. I mean, we're lucky if we got 20 million.
Yeah.
I'd snap someone's hand off for 20 million right now for him, and I don't mean it disrespectfully. Ben Davis, I do like the guy. Again, it should have gone this summer. We could have given him and Song a game together at I still call it White Hart Lane, at White Hart Lane to say goodbye. You know what I mean? Sack off a 50-cent date and put a football team in there. We'd have made more money because the money that the promoters making on the 50 cent or the show, we're not losing out on. I just don't. I just struggle, and I think our recruitment is what's catching up with us now, and it's seen in these performances. We've got too many players that need to leave, and not enough win now players.
Liverpool are getting 50 million for Nunes. It looks like it's going through 50 million. They paid 80 for him, I think, or something crazy like that. So they made a 30 million loss. But they're still getting 50 million back in, probably with a high amount of cash up front, from Saudi. And Diaz,
and his wages off.
Diaz gone for 70 or 65 in pounds, whatever. You know,
Yeah.
they always manage to do that, but they bought those players for quite high fees as well, right? But they've managed to kind of, you know, either keep a certain amount of level or a certain amount of quality, but sell them at the right time where they know that they can get someone else in better. We've rarely done that. We've been more forced into selling people, the people that have been good, that have kind of developed into top class, because, you know, they've gone to a bigger team, like Gareth Bale, even as an example.
Yeah.
You know,
and how many times have we sat on here and gone, oh, we're selling Kane because he's in his final year, or Basuma's in their final year, Bentancur's in their final year, Ben Davies is in his final year, Song's in his final year. How many times have we sat and said, and we just said earlier about Mark Gahey, you know, he's in his final year now, it's 40 million. What a steal that is. Let's go and get him. But we're constantly in our final year with players, and we don't sell properly.
But how again, you saw that header that Richarlison missed today. You know, he basically runs around all game, does nothing really, and then he's presented with a gilt-edged chance, right? You know, and he makes a complete mess of it. He doesn't want to leave the club. He's a really cool, funny guy, right? Because he's posting on Instagram, you know, making fun of other players for not winning a trophy, right? Where he won a trophy. But he's absolutely not backing it up in performances. And we just cannot, like, I don't know. We don't know if we've received bids for him that have been way under. But Levy's also, over the years, just asked for too much money for all of these players. Do you remember when Arsenal, was it 2 years ago, when they got rid of a couple of the players of their deadwood? You know, they made big losses on them, but they recognised that they just needed to get them out. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, that player they bought for what, 80 or 90 million? Can't remember his name now, but I think he scored against them the other day randomly. They bought that winger who was an absolute Pepe. That's the one.
Yeah, so
absolute disaster.
80 million on him.
80 million, yeah, record transfer. They let him go maybe for 10 or something, or even on
I found
a
a
free.
double A 2.9.
All of these, we've got it over and over and again, but like, we just need to cut our losses on these players. But coming to the incomings again, just quickly, like, you know, as we said with a Gahey or someone else, like why, like Bayern, you know, we identify one play as our main target, we go there and get them. It seems like we do that sometimes as well, but like then just not consistently enough. So with Morgan Gibbs-White, you know, by all accounts, he was Thomas Frank's number one, you know, kind of dream target, right? He's been following for the last couple of years. Obviously, I don't know whether we tried getting him and then it transpired that there was a release clause or you know, we don't know the full story there, but we were ready to put 60 million on the table and get this guy in, right? So we had done something like that. That was 6 weeks ago or 5 weeks ago now. Like, we need to go out there and get these, you know, this short list of 1-2 players for each. How do we, you know, how are we going to get there? This is my biggest concern just at the moment. I've said on the chat and on some other things that I'm still confident that we'll end the window actually with 2 or 3 players in, and I'm quite confident that they're going to be, in the end, suitable players for us. But if we get them on deadline day at like 11 p.m, do you know what I mean? Like, there's a gap. There's something missing there.
Phillip, I promise you, we will get onto transfers. I'm not, gaslighting you here. I know. We all want to talk transfers. We want business to be done. I promise you. I really want to whiz through the Bayern review stuff. But before I do that, I've got to read out some of these comments from regular in the chat, David Clark. He's put so much in there and be rude not to. Some really bold stuff as well. So first, he starts with Richarlison is the worst number 9 I've ever seen at Spurs. And I've supported Spurs since 1960. This guy can't even control the simplest of passes, yet Kudus has the ball fired into him and it kills him dead. David Clark goes on to say players like Johnson, Odobert, Tell, Gray, Davis, and Levy says he wants to win the Premier League and Champions League. He's either the biggest liar or fraud or both. 24 years of this crap. He goes on to say Richarlison was 59 million, but Spurs fans have no idea how the add-ons are achieved. This is true. So you think Richarlison has done things to achieve that £10 million of add-ons? No, he hasn't. He's achieved absolutely nothing. He says 50 million slip of my hand, lol. So that's the comments from David Clark, and who now later says outside big profits on selling Bale, Modric, and Kane. Everybody else a huge loss, so they've run their contract down, and we've got nothing. There's certainly, I mean, there's some bold stuff in there, but there are some. I think I get what he's trying to say. I think his point is right, but. Let's wrap up the Bayern review then. 81st minute, Spurs substitutions on came Archie Gray, Yves Bissouma, and off came Bentancur, and Sarr. So it ended 4-0 to Bayern. I think we can all agree that we were outplayed. I think it was a bad day at the office, definitely one to forget, and we're all glad that we're over. So I'm not going to even ask you about that. But Philip, I will ask you, did it hurt in that second half for periods of time to see us struggle against what was Bayern's academy at part of that second half? We really struggled and conceded 2 against them. I think it's quite humiliating.
Yeah, I mean, it's annoying, I guess, right? You know, when we've still got mainly first teamers out there on the pitch, right? We're bringing on first teamers from the bench who, you know, should be fit, you know, and have energy and stuff, but they haven't. And Bayern are bringing on kids that, you know, even I haven't heard of, right? You know, being here in the country and being in the league and stuff, you know, it's annoying and it is frustrating. Yeah. But again, you know, I'm going to go back to my previous answer. I just think at that point, you know, once they brought the kids on, you know, the game was pretty much done. Kudus, by the way, was on for the majority of the game, wasn't he? And he looked absolutely shattered. At the end, he was, you know, running through some more blind alleys kind of because there was no options to pass to. But he lost the ball in the end a couple of times because he was just so done. Like, you know, so it's frustrating. Yeah, it's annoying. But again, I just have to kind of probably say, you know, and I would say to people watching maybe that are a bit emotional tonight or a bit upset or a bit, you know, kind of like end of the world, you know, kind of feeling right before the Super Cup next week and, you know, no transfers coming in, losing to the kids. I would just say that, you know, I think at that point the game was done and look, we looked tired. We looked done. You know, if anything, we need like now, 4 or 5 days, a couple of days of rest. You know, if we're coming back to London, like come back here, let the players spend some time with their families.
Listen, Philip, I know what you're saying and I hear you, but this was Bayern's under-21s in the second half. That's what concerns me slightly. I get it makes sense, but I'm very concerned that I hadn't heard of majority, if not all of those players, and we were run ragged by Bayern's under-21s. It's not their first team like we saw for most of the game. They've given up by that point. You know, company might as well, you know, put out a deck chair and got his newspaper out. That's the problem I have.
No, and you know, I accept that, right? And you know, I mean, I think we all agree it was a poor performance overall, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we didn't show enough energy in the game. You know, there was a lot of cases where maybe some of the players looked like they, you know, weren't really up for it, kind of thing. You know, I don't know. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, we've got a new manager who's been there 3, 4, 5 weeks, and you know they're trying to install new methods. On the other hand, you could kind of turn it around as well, though, and say that probably last season, you know, there was a hell of a lot of games where we got outplayed, right, in second halves by lesser teams. You know, where we didn't really like do much at all in the game, and you know, in some ways, the new manager coming in probably has a bit of a kind of mental situation maybe to deal with the players as well, right? Fact remains, we did lose 21, 22 games in the league last season. You know, we conceded a lot of goals. Yeah, we won the cup, but you know, he's taken over a team which had pretty much the worst form in the league up to a certain extent in terms of like turning up in the Premier League against teams that are battling, teams that have got a certain level. So look, I mean, it's hard to analyze, right? But you know, the Bayern, the youngsters that came on, you know, for sure they're all at a top quality, right? Bayern only buys, you know, the best of the best under 21 players, and they've got a consistent you know, production line of players coming through, and that was their kind of big big chance at home, right? I think against Lyon, they didn't play that many of the youth. So, this was probably their opportunity to come on and shine in front of the home fans. So, I'm not condoning it, but, and I'm not happy about it, but I honestly think there's a lot of mitigating factors for it. And, it counts next week against Paris. It counts on Saturday against Burnley. And, maybe in the end, it's not a bad thing that we were kind of taken to the cleaners, if that's how we want to call it, by some of the under 21 players in the second half, because all it does, it just makes clear our deficiencies in the squad or in the team. Again, to Lange, to Levy, to Unai, to all of the people involved, to Paratici, and they need to get all of their ducks, all of their eggs in a row tomorrow, for the coming days. But I wouldn't lose too much sleep about this. I think everyone's a bit concerned about the way that the season is kind of shaping out or starting up, obviously with the injuries and some of the performances. But it only counts really from next week onwards. That's the reality. So we shouldn't lose too much sleep over it, if that makes any sense.
No, absolutely. I think you're spot on. Important not to get carried away, but of course, still look at things you can improve on. That would be Frank's job. Gary, did you say we, would look toothless going forward? And would that be fair to say? Most of our pre-season games, to be honest with you, we've maybe looked resolute and defensively disciplined, but really struggled going forward, which then puts pressure on your back line.
It does, but our back line had improved. I think if we take today out, I think the structure of our back line and the way we've set up and progressed the ball has definitely improved. It didn't look like we're taking as many risks. Like I said before, we're not tucking the fullbacks in, which makes a huge difference. And both fullbacks aren't going on, which is then allowing us in most cases, a 3-on-2 situation. So those have improved. I feel like perhaps that's what he's come in to look at straight away. Because attacking-wise, we've got a number of players, but unfortunately, we've picked up a huge injury there that we can't envision happening. James Maddison was clearly going to be someone that was massive for the season. You would have had Kudus and then whoever on the left, maybe Tell and Solanke. Solanke obviously picked up a knock. Maddison's then out for probably most of, if not all, the season. So I think going forward, we would have been okay, but we needed another player. Now we're going, oh my God, we desperately need that player, and we probably need another one as well. But looking at today, we created nothing. We had one opportunity that I can think of off the top of my head that fell to Richarlison that was not even being pressured, and he just heads it wide. He scores that; it takes a little bit more pressure off the game. But I think where we've certainly improved. I think we've controlled parts of the games we have played, and defensively we've looked better structurally, and that will only come with time, with more repetition under Thomas Frank. But I think there's quite clearly, and he has said in his post-match press conference just now that it's quite clear that we need a number 10, and we need to go out and find someone. Because of the injuries, and I think that perhaps weren't pursuing anything as much with Arthur Morgan Gibbs White, because we've got Kulusevski, we've got Maddison. Perhaps we just need one more, and now we definitely need it because we're short. So I think that's where we're probably at as a recruitment.
I say use that 60 million that we were going to bid for more Gibbs White, and that 20 million that we've reportedly got for Son, and give it all to Crystal Palace for Eze, because I think they'd accept something around 80 million. But I'm breaking my own rule with getting into transfers a little bit early there. So apologies there. But let's quickly talk about pre-season overall, and I quickly want to touch on PSG. Then we'll talk all things transfers and the news about Maddison, etc., etc. So, Gary, I'll stick with you. What are your thoughts on pre-season overall? Has it been genuinely positive?
Yeah, I don't come out of it negative. For me, the biggest problem we had last season was conceding goals, and I think that if we take today out, that we came up against a world-class team that's front four is over 300 million in transfer fees. So we're not going to come up against that regularly. We will do here and there sparingly. So the more we play against better teams, we should improve. But equally on that side is the structure of our back five is certainly better. It's a lot better. I think it's night and day in terms of when you watch it from a distance. So that was, for me, was the biggest thing that we needed to improve. And I kind of thought that would be the case with Thomas Frank anyway. Going forward, we always seem to be able to create and score. We scored quite a lot of goals last season, funny enough, but we conceded far too many. My biggest worry now is key players in the attacking wise are injured. So that's the biggest concern. But in terms of pre-season, I think where we needed to improve defensively and in set pieces, especially attacking and defensively, we look better in all three of those areas. So for me, I'm relatively happy. I don't take a lot of results in mind over pre-season. I really don't. For me, it's getting minutes and legs, structure, understanding what the new manager wants, because we seem to need to have a new manager every 2 years, so we need to keep doing that all the time, and then ticking away. And so I'm relatively happy. If you'd have said taken today's result out, I would have been very happy.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's move on to that transfer news then. So let's start with Heung-min Son. He's officially left to join LAFC. He's officially left Tottenham. I mean, Philip, I'll start with you. Would you agree with me that his love for Tottenham was really evident in those goodbye videos that were filmed, recorded and posted by the club? There's quite a few as well.
Yeah. I mean, very emotional videos. You know, he wrote that letter, didn't he, which he kind of read out, and he did that, unscripted video call as well, right, where he's obviously very, very emotional. And I think probably most people watching that as fans would have been in the same boat. He's absolute legend of the club. We discussed it yesterday, didn't we? That we don't want to always compare or have an argument about who's a bigger legend now, right, between him and Kane. But the reality is that Sonny stuck with us. He extended his contract, I think, in the same summer where Kane did that interview with Gary Neville on the golf course. So he's shown true loyalty to us over the years, and there's no doubt that he would have had big offers to go a couple of years ago, big offers, right? And he stayed true to us, and he'll always have that, with us. He was our captain. He won us the trophy as captain. It was a nice way to go out for him, I think, in Seoul, in front of his fans there. And it's a shame he can't kind of, stick around to kind of say goodbye against Burnley, possibly, or something like that. But I'm sure he'll be back, this coming season. I'm sure that the club will honour him, with a permanent kind of tribute as well, which I think is well deserved and nice. But, look, also the fact that he's left now, I think, is also the right decision. I think it's good that we as a club allowed him to make the decision as well, right? Whether he wants to move on or not. And he did make the decision. And I think it was clear that it's something he's been thinking about for a while. I'm glad that we allowed him to do that. And look, in the end, I think it's been probably a good move for everyone now, because he gets to go to LA, massive Korean population there, quite a cool league, which is growing, play with Messi in the league there, play together with Hugo Lloris in LA, and in the end, we did get good money for him, right? Was it $27 million? It's a pretty good transfer fee for someone who, if we're being honest, despite him still picking up quite a few assists last season, a few goals, he's not on the same level as he was a couple of seasons back. And I think that, he's lost a bit of pace as well. So I think it's a good time for him to move on at the highest, on a high after winning us the cup. And look, it's going to be weird kind of going into again, a new manager era, and a new kind of era anyways, right? Without Kane or Son, who were with us for so long and kind of defined who we were as a team. So it's going to be a bit weird like that. But I think in the end, it's kind of worked out very well for all parties this summer. But I do still think that we kind of need to replace him, along with that 10, obviously, that we need now as an absolute priority. I think the reality is that if we really want to compete at the top end of the league or compete in the Champions League, realistically, we need another Kudus, but on the other side. Players like Odebert, Tell on the left, they've got a lot of potential, and maybe they can be that player, in the end, or at least almost to that level. But, we need someone, I believe, similar to a Diaz who's just gone to Bayern, right? Who can play on that other side, but they're going to come in with their 10, 15 goals, 10, 15 assists.
That's it. It can't be someone for the future. We have a lot of them. It needs to be someone ready now. A statement signing. Yeah.
And it also and the point of that is, if you are going to play games like Frank will play, where we do sit back a bit more with the Paulina as an example, you need to show the opposition that you've got those players, that they're scared of them, right? And that you're going to cause damage. Like when we had Son, a top quality Son on there, everyone was scared of him. Salah, everyone's scared of him, like those kind of players. Saka, like they're the ones that make things happen, and they're going to get X amount of goals and assists. And I believe we still need Kudus can be it, right? Kudus looks tricky. He looks very, very good when he gets the ball. I'm sure he's going to go from strength to strength. But we need something else on the other side. So related to Son, I think we need to replace Sonny. Whether we'll do that is another matter. I believe we will get a number 10 in the next 2 weeks, and I think we will get a good option as a number 10 in, but I don't think we're going to get another player out wide. That's my feeling.
Okay, thank you, Philip, for that. Nice words there. Gary, how do you feel now it's real? I mean, it feels really strange, isn't it, for me? It feels quite emotional. I mean, it's given us so many special memories to cherish over the years. Of course, being an incredible human being, as well as like a leader, a captain, a servant, this, that, and the other. And I just think genuine class guy on and off the pitch.
Yeah, he comes across that way. Everybody seems to have the same opinions as well. Even people that don't play for the club or have never played for the club seem to have the same opinions. I think it was quite telling that where he came off, and Newcastle gave him a guard of honour as well. So that kind of just shows the nature of the man, and the videos were quite emotional actually. Some of them I thought, wow, I like this. This is quite emotional. I've never seen anything like this ever. The only other time I can think of seeing someone that sort of not distraught but very sad to leave was when Beckham retired at PSG, where he came off and he was just in floods of tears. And it was an emotional time, but ultimately I think it was the right time. I'm pleased that he was given the opportunity to do what he wanted. I think that was right. I watch MLS every week, so it's good for me. So I still get to see him play. Apple TV be on even more now, so I'll get to watch him. And he's out there with a huge Korean market as well, so that's good. I'm pleased for him that he can carry on playing at a good level, and we got some money. Ultimately, I'm not overly bothered by the money. If he would have seen his contract out, I'd have still think he would have had this sort of heroic departure. But I think it was time. I think it was the right time for all parties. And just obviously, I think everybody wishes him the best in terms of legends. And he's obviously a club legend. Absolutely. It just depends on what era you're from. To you, Harry, I'm sure he is your ultimate legend, because obviously that's your era. I'm a little bit older than you, so there's some others for me. And but he is up there, and obviously there's some other people that have been Spurs fans that could go to Hoddle and all those type of things, but he's in those lists. The biggest thing for me, I think, is the him as the man, that he didn't leave when he could have. He said, "I'm going to win something." He did it, and that for me puts him as close to the top as you could probably get.
Absolutely. Love this comment from David Clark. I hope Son isn't going to fight with Lloris in the dressing room when he's out there. That's very good. But no, I would, massive thank you. Son, you've been on my screen for an awfully long time, ever since I started watching Tottenham, so it feels really, really strange. Gary, can I ask you, before we move on from Son, what's your favourite, kind of Son moment? Maybe it's a goal, it's a game.
Lifting the trophy.
Yeah.
I don't think it gets any better than that. I don't think anyone will disagree with that. I think his best goal was clearly against, was it Burnley, wasn't it? The Puskas like that. Just, wow. Can see it now. Just an incredible goal. When he first came, I can remember when he first came and he was presented and he scored on his debut. I think he scored on his debut at White Hart Lane, and it was like, this guy's arrived, and just progressively, he just kept getting better and better. And I think that was really true, and that I know that a lot of us as fans think that players care, and I know that it sounds a bit strange. It's a job for them. Some players, it's just a job. I know quite a few players that don't even like football, and they're professionals and they've got no interest in it. To us, it's everything. When you watch those videos and the way he talks, I kind of think he cared. And I feel like he did, and I think that rings true with a lot of us as well. So, best was him lifting the trophy. He deserved that probably more than anybody that I can think of for a long time. And the reason for that is he stayed with us. He didn't turn his back on us like the others did. So to me, that's huge.
Absolutely, that loyalty. Next, I want to move on to James Maddison, because the club confirmed it is ACL and he is undergo surgery for that. He's had his scans, etc. Philip, I mean, firstly, devastating news, isn't it? And you've got a feel for Maddison after just coming back from a lengthy injury too.
Yeah, I feel really bad for him. He must be devastated. You could see him hobbling away from that game in Seoul. Obviously, feeling very sad, and now to get the diagnosis. I'm sure he knew after it happened, right, that it was going to be something like that, right? I think it's pretty clear. So it wasn't really a surprise to hear that it is an ACL and going to be the season realistically. But still, it's a shock, isn't it, when you kind of read it, black and white, the reports. You still kind of hope somewhere that maybe it's just there's a lot of swelling, and underneath it's not as bad as it kind of looks. But yeah, I feel really bad for him, I think, because it would have been a really, really pivotal season for him, I think, as well, kind of coming back and, being in this new setup, being in that team. I hope that he, doesn't have any challenges with his recovery, and that he kind of comes back within time scale, and that his knee is kind of, strong enough moving forward, because obviously, wish him only the best and everything, but it's a bad injury. He's 29, he's going to be 30, I think, beginning of next year. These are the kind of injuries, I think, which can be a struggle to come back from potentially, like that one knee has had quite a lot of, wear and tear to it, right? In total, right? In his career now. So I really, really hope and pray that he's able to kind of come back for us and, get back into the first team, and get back to that level. That's really what I'm just kind of hoping for at the moment. And what Madders is like. He's the life and soul, isn't he, in the dressing room? He's a funny guy. I hope that through his long absence now, that obviously the club does keep him, close to the team. That he's kind of do you know what I mean? That he's in there with the players. Because you hear different stories as well, right, about players that go out on these kind of ACL injuries and stuff, and they kind of, disappear for X amount of months because they're allowed to kind of recuperate, back home. Sometimes even with doctors of their own choice, right? If it's agreed by the club, if it's maybe in a different location. So I hope, knowing how he is, but also knowing the positive impact that he can have on the squad, that he's kind of still, integrated, right? Part of everything. But yeah, I feel really, really bad for him, because I still think he had a great season. Like if you look at the stats, he had a really, good season last season, right? Bearing in mind he was injured as well. But there's part of me that still thinks this season now would have been a really pivotal one for him to kind of almost kick on another level, because I still think there was something inside still waiting to come out from Madders, another step up. But that's not going to happen now. So, yeah, just hope he comes back well.
Indeed, it's really sad. Thank you, Philip. I mean, Gary, awful news in terms of kind of replacements, not just replacements, of doing more in the transfer market. We have spoken about it already. I think you can absolutely agree with me that a number 10 or attacking player, let's say, is an absolute must. It's a priority for the rest of the window. Who do you think we should be going for or going all out for? Anyone in particular?
I think the first time I came on here, I said Eze. I said Eze last season, last summer. I've probably said Eze for the last 2 or 3 seasons.
It makes sense.
It went, and I said before, like when I was at the Crystal Palace game, he tore us to pieces. He everything was through him. It's just what we need. That's the type of Spurs players that we like as fans. And for me, it was him. I don't know if he's an Arsenal fan. I've tried to do some digging and looked, and I've read loads of things that he is, and I think that might be why he's not pushing to come as much as we want him. I think if he wanted to come in, he probably would have put. I think he's an Arsenal fan. I think that's probably why it's not being done. I said Morgan Gibbs-White as well. Unfortunately, that's not happening. But we need that type of player. It's not a lot of them around, like strikers. There's not a lot of world-class strikers like there used to be. But we definitely need that 10 now. I would be okay with Attell and Odegaard to play on the left. Quite happy with that if we spent the majority of the money on that central number 10. The reason why I'm not sure we will is because I think Levy or whoever is in charge, I will always say Levy, but whoever's in charge of the recruitment, they're going to say, well, we've got Maddison and Kulusevski, they'll be back. So we don't want to spend too much. That's what I think we're going to be at. That's how I can see, just from previous summers, of how we are. We've got these 2 players, they're injured. Can we get through it? And that's the sort of attitude we might end up taking. Thomas Frank has said in his post-match, I was just reading then, that, they clearly need somebody. Solanke is probably going to be back by the beginning of the will be back by the beginning of the season. The doggy's going to be a couple of days, so he'll be fine. So, I've just got this awful feeling that the recruitment side of things are just going to go, well, we've got Maddison and we've got Kulusevski, so we could probably get through it. And that's kind of where I think things might end up going.
I totally agree with you, but I think it's such a lazy and unambitious, like non-top 6 club way of looking at it, going that, Maddison will be available in, 6-7 months. Let's be honest with you. He's not going to be up to match fitness for probably at least 9-10 months. And
he won't play this season. He won't play this season.
I don't think so. He certainly won't play at a high enough level to be able to be useful. No disrespect. Right. It's not his fault at all. And Kulusevski, he's not going to come in and hit the ground running. He's been out a long time. Look who he come back from an injury last time. And fans are getting frustrated with him after 6, 7, 8 games because he didn't look right at all. He's got back out injured again. It's going to take him a long time. So for me, we absolutely do need someone. And it frustrates me that we probably won't get someone or we'll leave it late, as Phillip says. But Gary, do you think this is a big wake-up call for Levy? As you said, not just Levy, but Koya, the recruitment team. Is Thomas Frank currently being set up to fail if we don't sign anyone else?
I don't think they're doing it on purpose. I don't think they're sitting there in the tower, Spurs tower, and going, let's just not spend any money for a laugh. I don't think they're like that. I think they generally do care. You look at the very well produced interview that he did with Vinay, and then the even more well produced video he did with Gary Neville, clearly care about the club. And if we have to take him on face value, that he's not involved in the picking of players, he is involved in negotiating, his words, in and out. That were his words. He's involved in those. I think it was the last time I came on here. I said before, we are asset rich, and I think we're cashless. I don't think we've got the money. I don't think the money's there. I think they're not going to. The owners won't put money in, and we don't sell players. And being a promoter myself, they get a fee for the concerts. They're good fees, but they're not Premier League football. There's fees. I don't think there's our money there, and we consistently try to put money over longer periods of time, and we just don't seem to be able to sell assets at a decent level. And my concern is there actual money available to go? When it came out we were going to spend 60 million for Morgan Gibbs White, I was shocked. And then when it came out that it was two 30 million pound deals, I wasn't so shocked, because that's exactly what they like. So we want Eze. I don't think the money's there. I just don't see
the
it.
issue is in Crystal Palace is the way that, and I could be wrong, but Steve Parish works. He likes all the money being paid up front. He doesn't actually ask a lot for players. You look at Palace, whether it be Zaha going for free, whoever it may be, Palace let a lot of players go. For them, that would be high value players for not a lot of money at all. But one thing they do ask, is important for them, is that they get the money straight away. They don't like the instalments here, add-ons here. So with Eze, in my honest opinion, I think they're saying to Tottenham, 65, 70 million only. It doesn't sound like a lot if you look at other players in the market. Diaz going for 70, 80 million, for example. I'd much rather have Eze. I think Diaz is great, don't get me wrong. I know the different positions. Both can play on that left. But I think Palace would say, 65, 70 million, but I want it all now. Where Tottenham will be like, 25 million now, you go 25 million in November, and that's just no good to see Parish.
That's not the way you should do it. And this is not what one of these big, huge clubs are going to do. The other clubs are not going to do that. And this is why I said earlier on when we first started, this is why I think a Jack Grealish loan makes sense. Because we've got two players there that are going to end up coming back. Jack Grealish needs to go out of place in football. We can pay him a small fee on the loan. He's a Premier League winner. He's proven. He's English. He knows the league. He knows the players. Can play in the left and through the middle. His best position for Villa was through the middle. Really, I thought he played very well through the middle. He came across off the left quite a lot as well. He's there. He's available. I'm sure if City wanted to let him go, a loan deal with an option isn't out of reach. And equally, that's Daniel Levy's sort of things he's interested in. He likes to have a look at a player and decide. And it kills the two birds with one stone. We're not spending 60 million, and then we've got two players back, and then we're in the same position we are now of we need to ship some players out again because we've got too many in one position.
That's the thing. We do well at loaning players, but not selling them. Last but not least, and it's another question, I'm just going to generally just go through some transfer stuff. So a couple of players have gone on loan this week. Will Lancashire's gone to Oxford United, and Jamie Donnelly's gone to Stoke City in the Championship to join Ashley Phillip. So I think that wraps us up though nicely for this podcast. But again, a longer one, but a very good and detailed one, which I think is good. No point doing it short if we don't dissect the stuff that needs dissected. So big thanks to Mark earlier. Come on, let's go through the rest of the panel. Gary, thank you very much for coming on. Remind people what you do and where people can find you on the socials.
You can find me on Twitter or X, at Gary R. Ward. Obviously tweet a lot about Tottenham, Syria. Try to do a little bit of MLS if I've not fallen asleep, because sometimes they're quite difficult games to get through. But all things European football I'm very interested in. You might see me tweet about random events because I'm an entertainment agent as well. So you might see we put Jimmy Bullard tour out. That's because we've done the tour and little things like that. So You'll see some things floating around that you think, why is this guy tweeting that? It's just the day job.
Yeah, he hasn't lost his marbles, don't worry, it's still related.
If you see me randomly tweeting about Leeds podcast, that's because I represent them. It's not because I've started supporting Leeds.
Supporting Leeds, yeah. Fed up with Tottenham, ditching them, and go support Leeds. Love that. No, thank you very much, Gary. And Philip, thank you to yourself to again remind people what you do. And you don't talk about it enough because you do an awful lot yourself. So please do that now and also tell people where they can follow you.
Yeah, I'm mainly on Twitter or X as well, at Frankfurt Spurs. Generally tweet about Spurs, about the Bundesliga, about German football as well, specifically sometimes about Eintracht Frankfurt, who I guess are my German local team here that I've adopted, but it's all mainly Spurs related. Trying to do a bit more around kind of youth players, actually, like next, up and coming talents, specifically in the Bundesliga. So we're going to do a series on that over the next couple of months. And I know I say it every time, but I would like to get a bit more involved on YouTube as well, maybe, and start doing a couple of pods on there, or just kind of discussions or something, right? Or special features. So I will do that at some point when I find the time, like, properly to do it. But
excellent.
There's no time like the present, probably. So watch this space. Thank you for having me on again. It's always a pleasure.
No, thank you. Please follow both these guys and Mark across all socials. Thank each and every single one of them tonight. And I want to thank everyone for watching. If you're listening on a podcast platform, a lot of you do at the moment. Big up to you. Please do drop us a follow and a 5-star review. Check out our partners in the Kitmen. If you're listening on YouTube, like and subscribe. And for now, come on, you Spurs.